indicating that they directed their intelligence services to carry out this assassination. It's not an act of war; it's an act of terrorism against a high-profile Russian lieutenant general. General Kirillov was the commander of their chemical, biological, radiation forces, but he had achieved notoriety of sorts because he is the face to the Russian ongoing Russian allegations centered on American biological labs that had been operating on Ukrainian soil. The Russians, in the course of the special military operation, had occupied several of these and gained access to documents. And he was using these documents to make the case that the United States was engaged in what Russia assesses to be offensive biological warfare activities that were in violation of the biological toxin in weapons convention. It's a violation of law. And, you know, the Ukrainians had indicted him 2 days ago, and then they killed him. You know, this it's up to the Russian government to decide. Dmitry Medvedev, the former president, former prime minister, and current deputy head of the National Security Council, held a meeting where he said that those who perpetrated this attack, that is the government of Ukraine and its defense ministry, must be held accountable, eliminated. What Russia does, I don't know, because they, you know, are probably looking forward to engaging in fruitful discussions with President Trump once he becomes President Trump, and might not want to poison the well. But you can't sit back and allow assassinations at this level to take place in your capital.
The assassination of General Igor Kolov, a high-ranking Russian military official, marks a significant event with far-reaching implications for Russia's internal security, its ongoing conflict with Ukraine, and broader geopolitical stability. The Ukrainian government's unusual public acknowledgement of directing this operation raises questions about the strategic objectives and the broader implications of such an action. This analysis delves into the circumstances surrounding the assassination, its potential motivations, and its consequences for regional and global politics. On the morning of date, General Igor Kolov, commander of Russia's chemical, biological, and radiological defense forces, was assassinated in Moscow. A remotely detonated explosive device killed him and his advisor as they exited the general's residence. The Ukrainian government claimed responsibility, labeling it a targeted act against an individual tied to Russia's controversial claims about U.S.-backed biological laboratories in Ukraine. General Kolov had gained notoriety for leading accusations against the United States, alleging violations of international conventions on biological and toxin weapons. This high-profile assassination is not an isolated incident. It follows previous attacks, such as the killings of Daria Dugina and Vladlen Tatarsky, both executed with similarly sophisticated methods. These incidents suggest a pattern of targeted operations within Russian territory, raising critical questions about Moscow's internal security and the ability of its adversaries to execute such operations. Motivations behind the assassination. The assassination of a senior military figure sends a clear message to both the Russian government and its citizens. It highlights vulnerabilities in Moscow's internal security, potentially eroding confidence in the state's ability to protect its high-ranking officials. General Kolov's role in advancing allegations about U.S.-backed biological warfare programs made him a symbolic figure in Russia's information warfare. Eliminating him could disrupt ongoing efforts to substantiate and propagate these claims. The operation's success demonstrates Ukraine's capability to strike within the Russian capital. This serves as a psychological blow to Moscow, emphasizing the reach and determination of Ukrainian intelligence services. By targeting such a high-profile individual, Ukraine may aim to escalate tensions and provoke a disproportionate response from Russia, potentially drawing greater international attention to the conflict. Operational aspects of the assassination. The execution of this assassination underscores the sophistication of the operatives involved. The following aspects merit attention. Intelligence gathering, the attacker's ability to establish General Kolov's daily routine and identify vulnerabilities, points to extensive reconnaissance. Given Moscow's relative openness despite the conflict, Ukrainian intelligence likely relied on local assets or sleeper cells. Technical expertise. The use of a remotely detonated explosive device, strategically placed on a scooter, indicates a high level of technical proficiency. This method ensures minimal risk to the operatives while maximizing the likelihood of success. Infiltration. Previous incidents, such as the assassination of Daria Dugina, suggest that operatives can enter Moscow undetected. This raises concerns about border security and the monitoring of Ukrainian nationals within Russia. Reactions and consequences. Russian authorities, led by Dmitry Medvedev, have vowed to hold the perpetrators accountable. This rhetoric suggests a potential escalation in retaliatory measures, which could range from targeted strikes against Ukrainian leadership to broader military actions. Escalation of the conflict. Acts of this nature risk exacerbating the already intense conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Russia's response could involve not only military retaliation, but also cyber and covert operations targeting Ukrainian officials or infrastructure. International implications. The assassination highlights the increasing normalization of targeted killings in the Russo-Ukrainian conflict. This could set a dangerous precedent, blurring the lines between conventional warfare and state-sponsored terrorism. Impact on Russian security. The repeated success of such operations may compel Moscow to intensify domestic surveillance and security measures. This could lead to a tightening of civil liberties and increased scrutiny of immigrant communities, particularly Ukrainians. Since the onset of the Syrian crisis in 2011, Russia has played a prominent role in supporting Bashar al-Assad's government. Russia's military presence in Syria, especially since 2015, with aerial bombings to support Syrian government forces, underscores Moscow's commitment to preserving Assad's regime. However, questions have arisen about potential behind-the-scenes deals with the West and Turkey to adjust strategies or agree on dividing spheres of influence in Syria. Tensions and agreements. Russia and the West, especially the United States and Europe, have alternated between tension and agreement regarding Syria. Initially, the West sought the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. However, with Russia's increasing influence and repeated defeats of armed opposition forces, this policy shifted. Some credible analyses indicate secret negotiations between the U.S. and Russia to find a common solution for ending the war and maintaining regional stability. Evolving policies. Some reports suggest that Russia in recent years may no longer view Assad as an absolute ally and might be willing to negotiate with the West to strengthen its influence in Syria. This could involve agreements to reduce Iran's military presence in Syria in exchange for Western support for Russia's preferred regional arrangements. Cooperation and disputes. Russia and Turkey have been both rivals and partners on various issues in Syria. Turkey aims to eliminate security threats from Kurdish groups and armed opposition, while Russia emphasizes preserving Assad's government. The Astana talks, involving Iran, Russia, and Turkey, reflect efforts to find common ground. Changing dynamics. Some analyses suggest that Putin might have reached agreements with Erdogan regarding control of certain areas in Syria. These agreements could include establishing safe zones in northern Syria under Turkish control, in exchange for Turkey scaling back its efforts to overthrow Assad. Analyses from credible sources indicate that while Russia publicly supports Assad, it may be engaging in deals and agreements with the West and Turkey behind the scenes to advance its strategic interests in the region. These agreements could involve dividing spheres of influence, reducing tensions, or even making minor changes to Syria's political structure. However, no definitive evidence of such deals has been officially disclosed so far. Iran's role in Syria. Amid the Syrian civil war, Iran has taken on a pivotal and multifaceted role, quickly becoming one of the most significant regional players in the conflict. From the outset of protests in 2011, Iran employed all available tools, military, political, and diplomatic, to support Bashar al-Assad. Before this, Iran and Syria were allies united against Israel and Western influence in the Middle East. However, as the conflict escalated, Iran elevated its role as a strategic supporter. The Quds Force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's overseas arm, swiftly entered the fray. They not only trained and equipped Assad's forces, but also mobilized thousands of militia fighters from countries such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and Lebanon to fight in Syria. But Iran's support wasn't limited to military aid. Through extensive financial assistance, including loans and humanitarian aid, Iran helped Assad's government sustain its political existence. On the international stage, Iran defended Assad's legitimacy through forums like the Astana talks alongside Russia and Turkey. Iran's support extended beyond merely preserving an allied government. Syria represented a critical link in Iran's axis of resistance, a strategic corridor to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and a defensive bastion against Israel and Western influence. This presence also allowed Iran to strengthen its regional influence, albeit at a high cost, financial, human, and increasing tensions with neighbors and rivals. The result of Iran's involvement has been significant geopolitical changes that have reshaped the Middle East. Tensions with Israel, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia have intensified, yet Iran has solidified its position as a regional power capable of influencing major developments in the region. Thus, Iran's role in Syria was not merely about supporting a regime, but part of a broader geopolitical game that continues to unfold. Iran remains at the heart of regional developments, striving to maintain and enhance its position in this complex and dynamic environment.